What if the Black Widow were to give up? What if she were to get married and have a kid? What if she didn't even know she was the Black Widow? This is the Comicstorian channel where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panel, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're going to be doing Black Widow Volume 1 by Kelly Thompson. This is a complete story, issues 1 through 5, and we're going to tell you exactly what happens when Black Widow gets a brand new life, a new lease on life. She's no longer an Avenger, and how this affects her friends. But today's complete story is brought to you by Mint Mobile. After years of getting ripped off by big wireless providers and tons of fine print contracts, it's time to say enough and get a phone plan that saves money without sacrificing quality. Well, Mint Mobile is just the thing. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. That's it. All plans come with an unlimited talk and text, plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number. And if you aren't completely satisfied, Mint Mobile has you covered with their 7-day money-back guarantee. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/complete. That's mintmobile.com/complete. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/complete. All right, let's get into that Kelly Thompson Black Widow run. It was just another day for the Black Widow as she takes an elevator up to a Manhattan skyrise. She stares at the numbers going up as her handler tells her to make sure that this one's clean. She smiles and tells him no problem. As the elevator door opens, she quickly runs through the hallway, slashing and cutting her way through the armed guards. As she reaches the end, she says that she's ready, and an arrow shoots through, hitting the lock on the door. She looks around the empty room, asking where would she hide if she was something important. Ah, the safe. Widow places a small device on the safe, and after ducking and taking some cover, the device explodes, and the door to the safe swings open. She then grabs the small hard drive inside and makes for the window, telling Hawkeye she's ready for her exit now. A second later, an arrow with a cable attached to it sticks into the wall beside her head, and she says that it seems that Clint is still a little mad at her. Didn't really think leaving him out of those missions with Bucky would make him so testy. Widow grabs onto the cable, begins to slide over to the next building, and as she lands, she says that it looks like Clint didn't wait for her this time. Cap walks out, telling her, "No, but good work on getting the drive. We have no idea what's on it, but a source says that it's important." After wrapping up the smash and grab, Black Widow goes home to her apartment when she notices the lights are already on. Someone is in her home. Again. She heads up to her floor, crawling out a window to try and sneak into her own apartment, but the second that she does, a flashlight shines on her. Before she even has a chance to react, she's hit with several small tranq darts and falls back out of the window. She tries to grab onto something, but the tranquilizer is already taking effect, and she plummets to the streets below. 3 months later, on the construction site of a San Francisco skyscraper, a group of builders stand around the blueprints of the building trying to make heads of the plan. Foreman asks, is anyone going to walk him through this? And then a voice tells him, sorry that she's late. She brought coffee as a peace offering. The foreman laughs. Damn it, it's impossible to stay mad at you, Nat. Nat lays down another set of blueprints, telling him, here is what we're doing. Later, after finishing up, she makes her way down to the street level, walking home when she gets a call. She answers, yeah, she's on her way. No, she isn't in the mood to cook. Figured she'd pick up some Chinese and, yeah, love you too. As she hangs up, she sees a motorcycle for sale and can't help but stop and stare. But back over at Hawkeye's apartment, he's watching the news when he sees Nat walk by behind a reporter on the scene. He immediately spits out the pizza that he's eating. He grabs his phone and takes a picture and then calls Bucky. Bucky tells him that he's busy, but Hawkeye says, wait, you're going to want to see this. As he gets the picture, Bucky says, that's her, not undercover. And Hawkeye tells him, how would you know? And Bucky says, because she wouldn't let a random newscast catch her on film if she was. It's been 3 months since anyone has heard from Black Widow. They gotta go check on her. Back in San Francisco, she buys the motorcycle that she was looking at and drives it home as a man waits at the door asking, what is this? She takes off her helmet, shaking her hair, stating that she saw it and had to have it. Though sadly, ride wrecked dinner. All that cool weather and high speed, dim sum will be dead cold. The man laughs. Natalie, guess this means that you need to be punished. She tells him if she must, then she must. do your worst. As the two laugh, she jumps into his arms for a kiss. And meanwhile, elsewhere, Arcade is watching a video feed of Nat stating, "Day 47. All is well and boring." But before I ask this next question again, let me remind you that the name Arcade still means something to people. I've got a rep to protect. So back to the question. When do you want to kill the Black Widow? The next morning, outside of Nat's home, she is watched from outside as she goes about her morning, and Hawkeye says, "I'm not so sure about this. It's not what I was expecting to find. She looks happy, like she did in that footage. Maybe she's not in trouble, Bucky. Maybe she chose this. What's the move here?" Bucky looks through the binoculars. "I don't even know if there is a move. Not yet, at least." She calls out to her husband, James, stating that she'll be in the garage for a bit, and as she tinkers around with the smoke detector, Hawkeye walks up. She looks over asking if she can help him, and Hawkeye says, sorry. I was walking by and couldn't help but notice the bike. It's incredible." She grabs a rag telling him thanks, she just got it. Does he know anything about bikes? Hawkeye says a bit and he holds out his hand to shake her hand. Nat takes it and says that he can come take a closer look. Her name is Natalie. He stutters, telling her, "Yeah, thanks. I'm Clint." He takes another look at the bike and Nat says that it's a work of art. Does he have one? And Hawkeye tells her, "Nah, too rich for my blood. Maybe someday." She laughs, telling him that it's good to have a dream. So then Hawkeye looks around, stating, "Not to be too far forward here, but it looks like you already have it all. Best house on the block, best motorcycle on the market. What else is there for you to have?" She smiles, telling him, "Come on. There's certainly more to life than houses and bikes." And Hawkeye says, "I'm a shallow person. Besides, it's easy to say that when you already have the bike and the house." She tells him good point, and Hawkeye asks, "What do you do for a living?" She tells him she's an architect. The two continue to talk and the garage door opens and they both stare to see what's coming and a small child walks out. Nat laughs, stating that is her little escape artist, always finding a way out. James calls out asking, "Hey, have you seen Stevie?" And she yells back that she has him right here. Hawkeye stares for a moment asking, You have a son?" She tells him, "Yep, this is little Stevie. Stevie, say hi to Clint." Stevie opens his mouth stating, "Gah." And Nat tells him that's Stevie for "Hi, Clint." Hawkeye says that he's beautiful, and Nat tells him, "See? Even better than a bike." A few moments later, James walks out saying that he couldn't figure out how Stevie, "Oh, hi." Nat tells James that this is Clint. "Clint, this is her fiance, James." Hawkeye shakes his hand. "It's nice to meet you, but anyway, thanks for letting me look at the bike. You both have a wonderful weekend." After making sure it's clear, Hawkeye ducks back into the bushes, stating that she has a kid. And Bucky tells him, "I saw. Do you think it's hers?" Hawkeye's confused. I don't know anymore. But it does look like her. And he's named Stevie. Bucky asks, "How is it even possible? She's been gone for 3 months. Did she recognize you? Did she give you a message with her eyes?" Hawkeye sulks. "No, nothing. I gave her plenty of opportunities." "How did she seem, Clint?" "She seemed happy, like it's her. It's absolutely her. But she's so happy, like she's living a dream. I'm not sure that this is something that we should be rescuing her from, Bucky." Later that night, Nat puts on a fancy dress, walking out into the living room as James tells the babysitter Helen that she might want to keep the bell on Stevie for the night. He hates it, but it's been a lifesaver. Helen laughs, telling him that it's smart, and Nat walks out, telling everyone, "Thanks so much for coming back out. James says that you were a whiz with Stevie last time." Helen says that it's no problem, and Nat tells her that there is plenty of food if she gets hungry. The restaurant number and their cell numbers are on the phone if she needs anything. They shouldn't be too late. As Nat says goodbye to Stevie, Helen stares. Great. So a short while after dinner, James kisses Nat, stating to come back home when he can. And James tells her as fast as he can. She waves as he gets into a cab, and then she goes to her car and hears someone calling out to her. Without hesitation, she walks towards the scream, stating that she already called the police, and then asks herself why is she going towards trouble. In the alleyway, a group of men are holding a woman, and the leader of the group says that it looks like it's 2 for the price of 1. And this one is even more attractive than the first. Nat scowls, gross, ripping off her dress, snapping off her necklace, swinging it around, and whipping it across the man lunging at her. She then starts to take the rest of the men out, but then pauses, amazed at herself and her skills. Whoa. She grabs the knife that one of the men dropped, throwing it so it hits one of the thugs, handle first, in the head, then grabs a second one, throwing it, stabbing another's hand into the wall. The assaulted man gets up running, and Nat says that it looks like it was more than 5 for the price of 1. You want to keep going or are we done? The leader then fires a gun. Nat ducks just in time to run over, grabbing him by the arm, snapping it. Once all the men finally stop moving, she takes out her phone asking, "Yes? 911? Later at home, she walks in asking if everything is good. And Helen says that Stevie was an angel, with the powers of Houdini, but her dress. She looks at it, telling her, "Yeah, it's okay. I caught it in the car door. Seam came right out." As they say their goodbyes, Nat closes the door and a cat comes out meowing and she says to it, "Best night ever, Logan." After putting Stevie to sleep, she grabs the baby monitor, heading into the garage to finish the project that she started. After some time passes, she stops staring at it and she asks, "Did she make a bomb? Why did she make a bomb?" The next morning, she wakes up to James kissing her and tells him that he got in late. He says that his flight was delayed, and the two go back to kissing when they hear the word "car" yelled. They look at the end of the bed to see Stevie, and Nat asks, "How did Houdini get in here?" And James laughs, stating that they've created a monster. As Stevie is pulled onto the bed, James asks, "Maybe we should go to the park today and see your ducks?" She groans, telling him that she can't. She's got a bunch of meetings, and then she has to duck out early for her fitting. Stevie yells, "Duck!" And Nat laughs. "Yes, darling, duck." Meanwhile, outside, Hawkeye and Bucky are still sitting in the bushes. Hawkeye asks, what are they going to do? They can't pull her away if she's so damn happy. She'd murder us. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have to pull her out, Clint. And yes, she might kill us, but someone has to be behind all of this, and their motives cannot be good. At that moment, a voice tells them both that if either of them touches her, she will break them, for they will find that she is a much less merciful widow. Hawkeye and Bucky look behind them to see Yelena Belova, another graduate of the Red Room, standing there. She kneels down and Bucky says, "You can't see that this isn't a setup? We can't leave her in there." Yelena says that all they have to see is that it's an obvious trap. And what they do not know is Natalie's mind. Perhaps she chose to be in this trap. Perhaps she's biding her time for some reason unknown to them. Perhaps it's a trap she designed herself. Bucky asks, like a cover identity that she's willingly slipped into, and possibly even brainwashed herself into? And Yelena tells him yes. Though it is unlikely, the only thing that is certain is that they must trust Natalia to be Natalia, and to let that choice be hers, especially because the child is hers. Hawkeye screams, "What?" And Yelena goes on stating that she tested the DNA. Stevie belongs to Natalia and James. There's no doubt. Hawkeye asks, "How is it even possible? The kid is like a year old. She's only been missing for like 3 months, 4 tops." Yelena says that she doesn't have the answers that he's seeking, but she was inside already, and Hawkeye says, "Wait, you were the babysitter? I knew you sounded familiar." Yelena says yes. So she will stay and keep watch, and they will go, and she will contact them if anything changes. So later that afternoon, Nat tries on her wedding dress, and as she looks at herself in the mirror, she begins to cry. A voice asks, "Miss Gray, are you all right? It's Helen, your babysitter. Sorry to bother, but I was walking by when I saw you in the window. I just wanted to check and make sure you were all right." She wipes her face, stating that that was kind of her, but no, she is fine, it's silly. Helen asks what's up, and Nat looks up, stating that her life is literally perfect. Perfect man, perfect child, perfect job. And she's about to have the perfect wedding. Hell, she even has the perfect motorcycle. So why does she feel like something is wrong? Like she's missing a piece of her life, a piece so huge that nobody could possibly live without it. Helen sits down, telling her that maybe it's not as perfect as it seems. And Nat tells her, no, it really is. I'm not the type of person to exaggerate things. I'm quite possibly the luckiest woman in the world. Helen asks, except? Nat goes on stating that except sometimes she catches this flutter of something. It's like there's another her trapped inside of this body. She's always screaming. Helen tells her that that doesn't seem like something a happy woman would say. And Nat laughs. You're right. It's a crazy thing to say or even think, and I know exactly what it is. It's that damned little voice that always tells you that you aren't good enough, that you can't get what you want because nobody does. But that's nonsense. I have everything I've always wanted, and I'll be damned if I waste another second of it. Meanwhile, in Arcade's control room, Madame Hydra Viper says that this is unacceptable. The entire point of this endeavor was for none of them to ever be here. Weeping Lion says, well, things have changed. And Snapdragon says, only because Arcade is a moron. Arcade yells, hey! But the Red Guardian says that she's right. Lion then says to leave him alone. It's not his fault. If they must, he was the one who forced this meeting. Viper then says, why would he do that, with Lion stating, because it's finally time to kill her. They have toyed with her long enough. They have brought her to the absolute pinnacle of happiness, and now they can rip it away in the most brutal fashion possible. I thought you would all like to see it up close and personal. Viper says that was never the plan, and Lion says, "You wanted the Black Widow gone like the rest of us." The Viper yells, "I did, but I'm not an idiot. I have big things coming and I want the Black Widow off the board. Do you know how many people have tried to kill the Black Widow? It's as close to impossible as they get. The woman might as well have 1,000 lives. We went to considerable trouble and expense to trap her in her own personal matrix, and it actually worked. She's been so damn happy that she's been out of the game for months, and now you just want to throw that away to have a little revenge?" Lion yells, "She murdered us! She doesn't get to go off and live in her personal paradise. I never signed up for that. Black Widow has to die." Red Guardian says, "That was not the deal. I signed up for this plan. Like it or not, we agreed to the course." Lion slams his fist. "No! She will pay for her crimes! She doesn't get paradise! How can you bear it, seeing her happy?" Viper asks, "You would waste everything that we've accomplished to put a bullet in her?" Lion tells her, "Not exactly," and Guardian stops him. "Then what do you mean?" Lion smiles. "It means we already did waste it. It's done, friends. We've got something much more painful in mind than a bullet." Everyone looks back at the monitoring screen and they see Nat pull up with Viper telling him, "No, you absolute fool, you just murdered us all." Over at Nat's home, she pulls up, getting her dress, sensing something is off. She looks over at the knocked over rocker on the lawn and then quietly walks in. She thinks to herself that she is oddly calm, like her mind is oddly sharp, like she already knows what to do. She pulls the hanger from her dress to be used as a weapon, calling out to James, asking if he's there, and then she sees the blood splatter on the wall. As she opens the door, she sees a group of men, and just like the elevator and the alleyway, she dances around, disarming and slashing the thugs until there is none of them left standing. One opens the door, and she quickly throws a knife into his hand, sticking it into the door. His radio goes off, but the person is speaking another language, and it's Russian. The man grabs his radio, yelling, "Kill them!" But Nat slams her elbow into his face, taking the radio, responding back in Russian. Since when did she know Russian? She looks up at the cabinets, and as the man groans, he takes one of the guns, firing back, not even looking at him. She reaches into the cabinet, pulling out her smoke detector bomb, asking, "Is this what I made this for? Why would it be here waiting for me?" She sneaks back outside, climbing down to where James and Stevie are being held hostage. She begins to shoot a nail gun through the window and then throws the knife, pulling the guard out, setting off the bomb. She runs over to help James, asking if he's okay, and he tells her, "I have no idea what's going on." She laughs, telling him that she doesn't think that she was just an architect, and James tells her that he's starting to see that. Just then, something in her neck shorts out, and she falls to the ground. A flood of visions begin to come back, and James grabs her, asking if she's okay. "Natalie, come on, wake up!" And back in the control room, Viper cocks her gun, telling Lion, "You better know how this process kills her, or the Black Widow won't have to kill you. I'll do it myself." Meanwhile, back with Nat, James quietly yells for her to wake back up, and after a few moments, she gasps for air. She reaches to rub the side of her head to get her bearings, and while things are still a bit swimming, things begin to make perfect sense, because she now remembers everything. James and Stevie look at her and she begins to cry. These two are her everything. She can't lose them. And over in the control room, Lion yells, "That's impossible! Frying the implant should have killed her. She should be a vegetable." Viper tells him, "You've killed us. I'll buy us some time, but knowing Black Widow, it'll only be a few moments. And after that, it's every man for himself. You all might want to consider disappearing for a while, maybe even forever." Snapdragon says that there is no point in them separating now. Their best hope is to stick together, to come up with a plan to kill her. Viper stops to think for a moment, and after a few seconds go by, she sighs. Damn it. Back at the house, Nat hears the door creak and tells James that she'll explain everything soon, but right now, they're in danger. She can get them out of here, but he has to do everything that she says as she says it. Soon the door begins to open and a Hydra agent walks in. She quickly grabs him, slamming him into the ground, and then the next man comes in, so she wraps her legs around his neck, throwing him off the second floor. Taking the man's gun, more agents begin to show up, and Nat opens fire on them while jumping down to the first floor. She runs across the room, kicking and shooting everyone in sight, and eventually uses everything that she can get her hands on as a weapon. Back upstairs, an agent sneaks in to get James and Stevie when Yelena sneaks up behind and knocks him out. James looks up. "Helen?" And she tells him that it's actually Yelena. She isn't much of a babysitter, as an old friend of Natalie's. James gets up asking if they should try to get to the car, but Nat comes in telling him no, those vehicles are burned. Yelena says that she disabled the cameras and she has a clean car at the bottom of the hill. Nat tells her thanks, and Yelena tells her that she'd do the same for her. But how about they skip the mushy stuff for now? So a little while later in the safe house, Nat brings everyone in, stating that this should keep everything secure for a bit. But Yelena says that she needs to call, but Nat stops her, telling her she already did. As James sets Stevie down, he looks at Nat and says he needs to know what happened. What happened to them? She sits him down, telling him yes. She'll tell him what she knows. Her name is not Natalie Gray, it's Natasha Romanoff, and she is the Black Widow. She was abducted in Manhattan 14 weeks ago, and she didn't see who fired the tranquilizers or who let her fall, but she did see who caught her. She woke up briefly in a lab strapped to a table. It was Hydra that kidnapped her, but no identifying marks were in the lab, so it could have been Hydra, AIM, or anybody's guess, really. You were already there strapped next to me, so I didn't know exactly when you were taken. Everything that we remember from before San Francisco is a product of implants or brainwashing of some kind. They built beautiful lives for us, nearly perfect, and beautiful fictional pasts that came with that. They also made Stevie out of our DNA. He may not have come to us naturally as we remember, but he is our boy through and through. California was their marker. That's when everything they made was their own. Everything after that was them. We were being watched, monitored, but it was us, and it was real. As for the people who did this, I have no real answer. Only Viper and Hydra are certain at this moment. But it doesn't feel like Viper was acting alone. I'm so sorry it has come to this. It's going to make what I have to say next even harder to say. If you love Stevie the way that I do, and I know you do, then you have to go. Raise Stevie and keep him safe. That means that you have to leave me. You have to leave me and never look back. With me, you'll always be a mark. And I can't live with that. We don't have a lot of time, so some of the things that I will say will hurt. But please forgive me for being so direct and insensitive. I have to know if you want to keep Stevie. James shouts, asking, "What?" And Nat says, "I know and I'm sorry, but I have to ask. Because if you want to try and return to your normal old life, if you want to try and walk away," but James stops her. "No! Stevie is our son! I can't believe that you'd ask." And Nat tells him that she knows. But she had to ask because the next part is even harder. You can't ever see me again. You can't talk about me to Stevie or anyone. I have to be worse than dead. I have to have never existed. These people, they will never stop, never. But if you're a nobody, you and Stevie can have a beautiful life together, and that will be more than enough for us both. James says that there has to be another way, and Nat tells him this is because she loves him, and that's why there is no other way. Then there's a sudden cough, and Nat says that she would like him to meet two of her friends, Hawkeye and Winter Soldier. James looks over, and Bucky just stares. Hi. Over the next few hours, Nat and everyone begins to formulate a plan to escape, but soon James begins to fade. He sits on the couch with Stevie, stating that even though this is a nightmare, he's glad that he could have met her. She was incredible. Stevie and him were lucky to have her, if even for a moment. Nat tells him that she was the lucky one. But as she gets up, someone on the outside focuses their scope on James and Stevie, and the shooter says that they're going to be taking them out. Mark. A second later, the sofa explodes with James and Stevie on it, and Nat screams. As she falls to her knees, Bucky picks her up, stating that they have to go, but she remains in place. Yelena pushes him, stating that they don't have time for soft touches, and she slaps Nat, telling her that the people are coming to kill her. Put aside your grief and move. There will be time for grief later. It is not going anywhere anytime soon, but Nat remains. Yelena raises her hand and Nat grabs it. I heard you. Everyone begins to grab their equipment, but as Nat looks back, she sees Stevie's little ducky toy. She hesitates for a moment and then runs back in to grab it, and then catches up with the others. Outside, Viper radios to Lion, who is perched with his rifle, asking if he has a visual, and he says he does, just not a shot. They've all left the initial area, confirming 3 targets in the stairwell, but no shot. Viper asks who is missing, and Lion tells her, the Winter Soldier. Viper sighs, we are all going to die. Snapdragon and Red Dragon, you're on, and Snapdragon says copy that. As the lights of the building are out, Snapdragon and Red Guardian break in through the skylight, and as they land, Snapdragon grabs her sword, asking, you get that despite everything, we're being drawn into her trap, rather than us drawing her into ours. Guardian tells her, if you're just getting that feeling now, I'm afraid you will not last long. Suddenly, an arrow whizzes by, setting off an explosion, knocking both of them to the ground. Snapdragon coughs, radioing in, we've been hit! Visual contact on Widow, Hawkeye, and Yelena. No eyes on the Winter Soldier. Send in the cannon fodder. Outside, Lion calls that he has eyes on Hawkeye, taking the... But before he could pull the trigger, an arrow shoots through the scope, sticking right into his eye. Hawkeye tells the others that Weeping Lion is down. Back inside, Snapdragon tries to stab Nat, but Nat takes her gun, shooting her in the leg, telling her, you really should have brought a gun. Viper walks back in the door, telling her, I brought more than enough guns for everyone. As the bullets begin to fly, Red Guardian tells her to wait, jumping in front to take a shot for Nat. Yelena jumps on top of Viper, and as Nat looks back, Guardian tells her, I was never with them. I knew they were going to proceed with or without me, but I knew I could protect you better from the inside. I had no idea. No idea the lengths to which they would go. I am so sorry. Nat tells him that she believes him, but that doesn't mean that this is over between them. Leave before she changes her mind and know that they will speak on this again. Hawkeye begins to fire arrows telling everyone that it's time. Nat and Yelena shoot their grappling hooks up to the ceiling, crawling out, and once Nat is ready, she tells Hawkeye to do it. Hawkeye nods, turning back to fire one more arrow, and then the entire building bursts into flames. And the next morning in another safe house, the door opens with Nat quickly waking from her nap on the couch pointing her gun. Bucky tells her that it's okay. It's just him. She says to tell her, and Bucky says that it's done, they're safe. Nat asks what about the scene, the machine that they used to project the hologram, and Bucky says that it's all ash now. She sits back up, stating that everything else, the money is handled and they're somewhere beautiful. They're brand new, clean slates, bright futures, and after today, we'll never speak of them again. She gets up stating that she's sorry that it had to be him to do it. He was the only one that she could trust with this. But she knows that he's angry at her. He worries what it means for the two of them. Bucky pauses for a moment and then tells her, yeah, I'm sorry if I'm being kind of selfish, especially right now, but there are times where I cling to the hope that someday we could. Nat stops him. I know. I want that too, but now I fear James and Stevie will always be between us. Bucky looks away. Sorry. And Nat tells him don't be. He's not wrong. They didn't give him that name by accident. They knew that it would only help her feel more at home with him. And now she doesn't know what to do. Maybe someday she'll feel differently about them, about everything, but right now all she can see is them, that she has lost them. And that in some twisted way he took them from her, even though it's what she asked for. All she can feel is their deaths, but they are for her. There's an ache inside of her that she's never felt before, and all the things that she's been through. Nothing has felt as empty as this ache. It feels like an endless hole. She cannot imagine something so dark and endless and empty that could never be filled. But soon she begins to feel weak and collapses, and Bucky catches her. It's okay, I've got you now. Later, she remembers that there was something left behind, something precious, and she's had her fill of losing things precious to her. She quietly opens the door to her and James's house and begins to scratch at the floor. And Logan walks up stretching. Hey, yeah, it's okay. I'm so sorry, I know you're scared. It's okay now, though. Everything will be okay. So several weeks later in San Francisco, she looks out over the ledge of a building, and Yelena says that her sources state that Snapdragon and Viper survived the explosion. The new Weeping Lion, who appears to somehow be the cousin of the one that she managed to kill, merged into a new body, lost his eye but is alive. Arcade left before anything actually began. She can help. They can break them. It won't even be hard. And Nat tells her no. She's done with revenge. It's an endless cycle, and who would benefit? James and Stevie? It's far too late for that. Yelena says that it's a risk to not strike back. Others may think that they can do something like that to her again. Nat shrugs and says that she doubts it. Those people are now marked. Let them watch the door for the rest of their lives. Yelena then asks, if not for revenge, then what? And Nat says something different, something that James and Stevie would be proud of, something that she'd be proud of. She can come along if she wants, could always use the help. Yelena says that she'd like that, and Nat says, good. See you on the ground. As she jumps off the ledge, she tells herself that she has remade herself so many times before, but never quite like this. She believes in it this time. She has to. And there you have it, the current run for the Black Widow. This is the first official book in the Kelly Thompson Black Widow run, which has actually been a lot of fun. It's kind of taking a more Black Widow spy approach, which, I mean, it's the same thing with the Winter Soldier. Sometimes they try to wrap them up into these crazy, like, Marvel plots. But honestly, when it comes to Winter Soldier and Black Widow, you just want your spy storyline. But there's one more story that we can cover in this series so far. There's only two up to this point. If you want us to do the next story in the series, please hit this video with a like, share it with your friends, and let me know in the comments down below. If you really want more Black Widow, though, there's plenty of historical stuff in her history that we could bring to this channel. So let me know in the comments down below what you would prefer. And don't forget, if you want to vote on more of the comics coming to this channel, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Comicstorian. Anyway, guys, I'll see you all in a little bit, and you all have yourself a great day.